Good, Rachel. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And so to start, I have to be so honest. You are my favorite part of a Struck franchise that I'm not going to talk about to the point that you're the only thing I care about. So
Oh,
seeing this movie, I was so proud of you the entire time. I was just like, I'm
oh,
so proud. Um, I think this is such a cute movie in the way that it is paying homage to kind of those tropes that we love from 80s horror movies, and just the comedic elements really worked. And so for you, what was it about bringing those together in a 90s setting at a camp, Friday the 13th and things like that, that really inspired you to make this movie and direct it?
well, I was looking for a script to start my directorial debut for years, and I thought I was going to start off with, coming of age drama, something that had tear-jerking moments, and we shot this film during the pandemic, Rachel, and um, I think timing had something to do with, me choosing Shaky Shivers as my first film. Is that I didn't want to be sad, I wanted to laugh. And I wanted to have a reason to get together with some old friends and make new friends and go celebrate and, and enjoy life and celebrate it and just laugh, right? And um, what spoke to me when I read, Shaky Shivers was two things: is that the ethos of the film, of why it was birthed, was the writers Aaron Strongoni and Andy McAllister. And I asked them, I said, "Hey, so why'd you write this script? What's this about?" And they said, "Well, we're children of the 80s and we loved the practical makeup effects that went into making the creatures in the films from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, um, and we want to celebrate that." And they had done a short documentary about Gabe Bartalis's journey as a makeup, artist, or creature builder, and they just fell in love with him. And and Gabe was like, "If you guys ever do a movie, I'll support you." And this, that craftsmanship is something that is slowly dying in Hollywood, and it's being replaced by technology, right? So they, made that, they made Shaky Shivers as an homage, like possible homage to that era. And then second, Andy, one of the writers, that time had an 8 or 9 year old daughter, and he wanted to share this love affair for practical effects and monster builds with her, but didn't want to scare the bejesus out of her. So he created these two doofus characters, and with a wonderful journey and theme that I used as my North Star, as a storyteller, is that what a great lesson that it's okay not to fit in. It's okay not to be the most popular girl or the prettiest girl in town. But, as long as you have that one partner in crime, that one friend, by your side, you're pretty good, man, and especially with today's social media pressures that all the young folks are going through to make everything look perfect and bling in. It's like, what just a great lesson, right? And I love that. And in the movie, we really, were cautious and and calculating, about how scary we made it. Like, I didn't want it to be like a scary, like jump in your seat, like horror slasher film, because this movie is just, for me, I was like, it'd be great if the fans that are, that grew up with, the 80s and 90s horror films, that love practical effects, could sit down with their kids, on the weekend and watch this and enjoy it together. And then at the end, walk away with some overall like lesson. So that's what really drew me to Shaky Shivers.
Yeah, and it's just there are so many characters in it too. I just, as much as I love the two girls, I also love Bob. He's just so tall that I was like, yeah, I love when they're hugging him in the end of this movie, because I'm just like, yeah, he is a real tall guy that looks like he gives great hugs. Like
Yeah.
they're just hugging him. I was like, this is really nice. And I think
Yeah.
it is such a sweet movie, because I think a lot of those horror movies that we know and love, we love them because the characters are why we connect with them, not necessarily, yeah, gore's there, but we're there because it's Michael Myers. We're there because it's the werewolf of American Werewolf in Paris and things like that. And so when you are working with actors to create these characters that have to carry these outrageous kind of things, as an actor yourself, what was your approach since this is your directorial debut? How did you kind of work with them to make sure the characters came to life in a way that we connected with them?
What's in the casting, Rachel? You know, it's like casting can make or break your film. And I knew going into it that we had very limited resources to put in front of the camera. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but even at the ice cream shop, there's no ice cream because we couldn't afford it. There's just blenders. Like I go, hey, there's no ice cream in this ice cream shop.
There's two bananas.
Nothing.
There's two bananas when he brings up
Yeah,
the
two
bananas.
bananas. And you know, and that ice cream sundae was plastic. We couldn't afford to make real ones because they would keep melting. So we got a plastic one that just held, right? And then the actors sold it. They were like, "Oh, it looks good, like a good sundae." And I'm like, "It looks plastic to me," right? We had nothing, but so it was. I had to lean on, the actors in the film, and so um, I was given, great advice, coming up as an actor is that, um, you know, if you have an actor that comes prepared, that takes over and makes that character theirs, your job is done, really, right? You can just sit back and call action and they'll take care of the rest, right? And that was the type of, actor or actors that I was looking for in this film, where I knew that even in the audition room, if they're prepared or not, and if they're like taking ownership of the character, or they're gonna need you to kind of walk them through the whole thing, right? And as an actor, I've always appreciated when directors allowed me to take ownership of the role, and then I worked with directors that are like, no, 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 these are all my ideas. And you do exactly what I say. Like you're basically a piece of furniture on their set, right? And it's their movie. Where other directors that brought the best out of me made me feel like it was our movie. It's my movie too. And this is my character. It's like, it's yours, go take it. Right. And we were very fortunate to find, Brooke and Vivi and Herschel that played Bob and Jimmy. Everybody made it their own, and the camera doesn't lie, Rachel. It's like that's something that I learned early on too, is that you can point the camera at somebody and you go, "There's a superhero in them," or there isn't. It doesn't make them a good or bad person. It's just the camera does not lie, and like when you point the camera at Brooke and Vivi, that is Lucy and Karen. They had a lot of sleepovers. They fought every other day and then cried it out every other day. You know, they had their heartbreaks and their good times and bad times. It's like they wore each other's underwear, right? It's like it just the camera doesn't lie, right? So you have to be very, very, very patient, and you have to cast for the right reasons, and sometimes I see films and you go, yeah, there's a big star in there, but it doesn't work,
Mhm.
and you understand there's a business side to Hollywood, and sometimes it's like you put the big star because it's supposed to guarantee money, but then we've seen the opposite where there are all these stars and the movie just doesn't work, right? It would have been better off just finding the actor that was perfect, right, for that character, right? So.
Yeah, and with this too, I just love the whole premise. Like I love the fact that they have a book of spells that they don't know how to say and they butcher them. Like it's genuinely funny. Like when Karen is saying it and you're like, you're butchering this, and I can tell that
Yeah.
you're butchering this spell, and yet somehow like it is a spell that works. He becomes a zombie, like genuinely funny. But when you have those moments that are so kind of out there, do you let them all play around? Like, is your set, now that you've kind of had a set under your belt as a director, do you enjoy having your actors play around and kind of find those moments for themselves?
Oh yeah. I mean, as an actor, I enjoyed that. I
Mm.
enjoyed, like, again, being able to take ownership, right? And then, taking what is on the paper and then making your own. And then, when I think a director trusts you, you know, you're there to contribute and add and all that spell stuff. It's like we didn't, it's not in the script. I was like, you guys just kind of say what you want, but make it funny, right? You know, I think she says like Osama bin Laden at what time or something like that. And I'm like, okay, that's funny to me, right? It works, you know.
It's great because
So
it's set in the 90s.
yeah, right. But it's just so endearing and it works, right? So when they make those words their own, it just works somehow. And that's the magic. That's movie magic, right? So um yeah, and that's when it's really fun, Rachel. Yeah.
It is so sweet as a whole too, because I do love that it's at the camp. I just watched Friday the 13th for the first time. And so that is obviously set at a camp. And so there are a lot of references to old movies, which I am assuming is built into the script itself. Is there anything that you got to add from old Hollywood? It's not old Hollywood, old horror
Yeah,
movies,
I'm old. I'm old. It's okay to say
the
that.
80s. But from old horror movies, like classic horror movies that you yourself put in that wasn't in the script originally?
Well, Rachel, you know, when I started out in silent films, right? Because I'm old. I'm kidding. When I worked with
You
Charlie
and Charlie
Chaplin.
Chaplin. Buster Keaton, your best.
um, well, I wanted to definitely infuse, you know, the fun and the innocence of like movies that I love growing up. I don't know if you would necessarily call Goonies a horror movie, but there were creatures in it, you know, like,
It's
you know,
scary.
yeah, and there's like prosthetic effects and you know, but when there was never a moment where I was scared. There was suspense, but I was never scared, like out of my seat, you know, like you knew who the bad guys and the good kids were, right? But there's this innocence and sincerity that I really appreciate about Goonies, you know. And so I wanted that in Shaky Shivers. And then also I wanted to pay homage to, you know, films like American Werewolf in London, like the werewolf transformation that Lucy goes through is like, you know, our homage to Rick Baker and, you know, those like artisans that made that scene work out in that film so like, you know, wonderful to watch when I was a kid. And you know, yeah, so you know, I would say I leaned really on those two films, right? And I tried to extract like their spirit, right? And it was easy to do because, you know, the writers are children of the 80s. You know, Gabe is a little older than me, the guy, you know, the gentleman who made all the creatures. So
Yeah.
they understood the film language that I was talking about, you know? So, and then also like Sam Raimi's Evil Dead, you know, it's like his, you know, that was one of his first films. And that was a spirit of like the can-do attitude about just like make it happen. Like they don't have any money, but I was like, in my head, I was like, yeah, we don't have the money to do this, but let's figure out a way, you know, and if we all, you know, put our brains together, something creative will come out of it and just have a can-do attitude. And then that movie is hilarious too. You know, it's like, it's so like ridiculous. They don't take themselves seriously. And, you know, that was a spirit that I definitely, you know, wanted to have a part of Shaky Shivers.
Yeah, well, it makes sense why I loved this movie outside of just my admiration of you, because you just mentioned two of my favorite movies, which is the Evil Dead movies and Goonies.
Mm.
Because I met Kiwi Kwan at an event and I was like, I texted my friend I was gonna meet you and I just said it's 007, not 00 negative, and she instantly knew who I was gonna meet. He was like, oh my God. But like, it is such an honor to talk to you. Like I said, you watching your career has made me so happy and you did such a
Mm.
good job with this movie. I can't wait to see what you get to do with your directorial career, and I can't wait for people to get to see this. I think it's such a cool campy horror movie and I loved it a lot.
Thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate your work. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Have a great one.
You too. Bye bye.